Okay, so I'm at 1 after the hour, so we can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're calling from. Thank you so much for joining our Pathways to Excellence launch webinar. I'm Mary Beth Schneber-Remrev. I'm the Director of Organizational Capacity Building here at the Partnership, and I'll be running the behind-the-scenes technology for the webinar today. Just a few technical notes before we get started. We are recording this webinar and it will be made available to you through both a follow-up email and on the partnership's website within the next couple of days. Please note that you will be muted for this presentation, but you should be able to hear us out of your computer speakers. If you lose audio at any time during the presentation, please just send me a message in the chat and I will do my best to troubleshoot for you. You can also put any technical questions in the chat box, along with content-related questions. Just be sure that you put your questions to hosts and panelists or to all of us so that we can hear. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to get us started.
All right, thank you, Mary Beth. Good day, everyone. My name is Aaron Wicks. I'm the Vice President for Organizational Capacity Building here at the Partnership. And as you may see, joined today by Mary Beth Schneber-Remrev, who's introduced herself, as well as our colleague Taylor Daniel at the Partnership. And also, we're very lucky to have Jim Boyd with us. Jim is our Excellence Consultant, and he is really one of the experts in our network about community action excellence, and he provides a lot of support for this program. So we're very happy to have him joining us today. He does a lot of work behind the scenes. And we're very excited to relaunch our excellence program. And so today we'll be talking about the program and hopefully generating some good questions from the group so that we can answer any questions you have and maybe get you interested in joining us and us joining you on a shared journey towards community action excellence. Before we launch into that, it's always good to start with the promise of community action. And I'd invite everyone to think about how the promise relates to agency excellence, because we can't fulfill the promise if our organizations aren't strong and performing at the highest levels possible. So community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. And we also want to take a moment to make a very important land acknowledgement. This meeting is being held remotely, but I am participating in this meeting from the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people. And I pay my respect to elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And we would invite everyone participating, whether it's live on our webinar or if you happen to watch this at a later time recorded, to take a moment and give respect to the land that has given us so much and that has been stewarded by peoples for generations before. Thank you. Our agenda today. First, we want to talk about excellence in community action. And what is it? What is it that we mean when we talk about community action? And importantly, why now, given all that we've been through over the past several months? We'll also provide a very quick overview of the community action standards of excellence, because they describe very clearly and concretely what it is that we're talking about when we talk about best-in-class practices in community action. Then we will share our renewed and retooled program that we hope will provide more opportunities for agencies to make progress on their own journey towards organizational excellence. And so we'll talk about the new program, how much it costs, and the timelines for participation as we go forward. And then we'll conclude, as we often do, by sharing some resources so that you can follow up this webinar with a little of your own homework and learning to give more consideration about the direction that's right for your agency. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mary Beth to talk a little bit about what is excellence and why now.
Great, thanks so much, Aaron. So yeah, we're just going to frame up this concept of excellence for this conversation. It's important that we start from that same page. And an important point of clarity is organizational standards. We tend to think of organizational standards in our network, and organizational standards are required operational minimum thresholds for our network. We recognize them as really important thresholds that are necessary for the basic functioning of a community action agency. But beyond that, we know that the communities we serve really deserve excellent community action agencies. We also recognize that every community action agency, every agency in this country, a community action agency or not, has things that they can improve upon. But improvement towards that excellent standard is really, it's a commitment, and it's also a pretty significant process. So in light of this, we are launching our Pathways, or relaunching our Pathways to Excellence program as a multi-tiered system to really support agencies on that journey towards excellence, and really as benchmarked by our 35 standards of excellence for community action that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. So I also feel like we need to address the moment that we're in, right? You might be asking yourself, like, is this really the time for us to be pursuing excellence? It's been a really difficult 2 years, and that's an understatement. Folks are really tired, we're stretched, but we can tell you at the partnership that those agencies who have institutionalized the community action standards of excellence have really been able to innovate throughout this really difficult time and have been really successful in attracting new resources and attracting new partners and building trust with their communities and their leaders. So that is to say that excellence has helped them to be able to meet their mission. So is now the time? We would say absolutely, now is the time, because this moment really calls on all of us to be excellent. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jim, who is going to walk us through the standards of excellence and talk to us a little bit about what excellence looks like.
Hello, thanks, Mary Beth. First off, for those of you who are new to this, the history behind the standards of excellence comes from the partnership and the partnership board, which sponsored these back in 2002, and which tried to answer the question, what does an excellent community action agency look like? What do they do in real world terms? And so that process began way back then, and the information came from you guys, from the field, and has evolved over the years. And originally that first set, 2003, needed a process where you would evaluate what your agency does at this point, at a point in time. And so anyway, just to update you, the current standards, they're updated every 2 years because excellence changes, optimal practices change. And so the 2021 standards of excellence have recently been updated. And Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, are they available for download?
They are. They're available at the partnership website.
And so those will be, from this point going forward, we'll be using those standards. And so they represent, and I always emphasize this in the training, is they're not abstractions, they're real world practices. And they're written to represent excellent real world practices, things that best in class agencies do, best in class community action agencies. And so there are 35 standards of excellence, and the org standards, as Mary Beth said, come from a lot of them came from the original set, but there's a lot more detail on implementation and deployment of the practices in the standards of excellence. For example, if in the org standards, you need a strategic plan, but in the standards of excellence, it's all about what you do with it, how you implement it, how you're using it to guide your agency, how you develop the metrics for tracking progress. So there's much more detail on the implementation and utilization. So to think of the standards of excellence as the starting process, but the standards of the org standards as the starting point, the standards of excellence would be how fully implemented those things are in your agency. The second thing I want to point out about the standards is, and we'll come back to this, is they are practices. All of them are based on optimal practices that you work towards. And the process we're going to describe is you assessing what you're doing now compared to the optimal you can work towards. So we're going to be inviting you to begin the process of moving toward excellence, or moving toward these optimal real world practices. And so learning the standards, learning the 35, think of them as benchmarks of excellence that you'll utilize to benchmark yourself through the process you can sign up for, benchmarking where you are at this point in time, and then getting feedback and assistance on moving toward excellence. And so that's the hallmark of the standards of excellence. And part of the process you'll go through is training, understanding what these are and how you can utilize them for moving toward excellence. The each of the standards are divided into, there's 7 categories of excellence that we're going to highlight in the training when you sign up for it. But we will be asking that you, as you join this process, that you get a grasp and an understanding of the 35 standards, because of the old saying, if you don't know where there is, and there being the optimal practices, if you don't know where there is, how are you going to move toward it? And so, and the other thing we'll mention several times is moving toward excellence and achieving excellence is always voluntary. You are required to achieve the org standards. The standards of excellence are something that you as an organization decide to move towards for the benefit of your staff, the community, those you serve. And achieving excellence would be a goal that you would work towards over time. And so we have a timeline built in for you to begin that process. I think we have another slide coming up. Just for background purposes, these original idea of best-in-class practices were founded on the Malcolm Baldrige performance excellence criteria, which are world-class, best-in-class practices for organizational management. And so a lot of these elements that are built into the 35 standards, their foundation are world-class management practices that any world-class agency or organization would see as fundamental to being an excellent organization. The ultimate outcome of this is achieving excellence, which is not an overnight accomplishment. So that's where the timeline here, where you can begin to work towards excellence, will allow you to choose your own timeline and move at the pace that would work best for your agency. I think we have one more, and this is just a recap of the 7 categories. These are the original Malcolm Baldrige, categories, and within that, the Baldrige criteria were modified to fit into the community action network best practices that were suggested or identified in our system that should be a part of this. So the 35 standards fit within these 7 categories, and the process where you assess what you're doing compared to each of these 35 standards, the benchmarking process will be divided up into these 7 categories. And they all integrate, but they all work toward the ultimate goal is for an agency to become a national agency of excellence, ever improving, continuously improving agency of excellence. And with that, I'll turn it back to our next presenter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. I was typing a comment in the chat, so I apologize for being a little slow to come back. Yeah, so we wanted to provide a little bit of an overview about how are these standards relevant to the broader goal of pursuing agency excellence, and kind of what's the overall kind of functioning of the Pathways to Excellence program. As Jim noted, the foundation is the standards of excellence. And I can't emphasize enough, these are not abstract, pie in the sky, aspirational types of goals. These are standards that peers in the field have come together and said, this is what actually works in a highly effective, best-in-class agency. And so these are real practices. They've been tested, and they're effective in the field. So that's the starting point, is learning about what are the standards, what are the various benchmarks that will help us as an organization identify where we are in terms of our functioning. And then, of course, after learning about them, the question is, well, then how do we do that? How do we go from here to there? How do we make those standards that some other agencies have been able to implement and institutionalize? How do we do that in our organization? And obviously, that's a process, and it's going to be specific to your agency, which is why a key part of the Pathways to Excellence program is assembling an agency team, and then using the knowledge that they bring from different parts of the organization to strategize about how do we make that live in our organization. And of course, we're all practitioners of Roma, so we know that no work that is seeking to affect change should happen without documentation. And so part of the program is also directed at helping document that commitment not just the commitment to pursue excellence, but also the planning and the steps that are taken, as well as the accomplishment, because those become your measuring sticks to track your journey towards excellence. Another key component, I alluded to this earlier in the chat, the importance of feedback. This excellence program and your excellence journey, should you choose to participate in the program, is one that you will not take alone. You will have the support of peers who can provide feedback and suggestions, best practices to help you along the way. And ultimately, we hope that agencies will seek to get the ultimate recognition, which is to be a community action agency of excellence. And this is something that's been around in the network for several years now. The ultimate achievement is the award for excellence in community action. And we have several agencies in our network that are award winners. And we would love to see more agencies not only aspire to that standard of organizational excellence, but actually achieve it, because then we can all join together as a network and celebrate agencies achieving that level of performance. So we hope that you'll consider going for that ultimate achievement, if not in the near future, maybe down the road when it's right for your agency. So let's get into the actual Pathways to Excellence program. Real quick history, because we want to try to respect your time and keep this fairly concise. Originally, there was the award for excellence. And the challenge with the award was, well, how do we get from here to there? That's a huge leap. We want to get the award. We want to be an agency of excellence, but what's the map? So that led to the creation of the original Pathways program, which was the roadmap. It was the process of doing that deep self-study. But what we've realized, and particularly over the last couple of years with the COVID pandemic, what we realized is that agencies are in a lot of different places in terms of their journey towards excellence. And also, the journey is often not a steady and well-planned out journey. It has ups and downs. And I think we all learned that there were things that we wanted to do at our agencies maybe 2 years ago that we had to hit pause because a global health pandemic and economic crisis happened around the world and in our communities. So the approach that we are introducing today is one that will be more flexible to allow agencies to sort of come and go as it is right for them. And so we call it a tiered approach, where there are 4 tiers. There's a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. We still have the platinum level as our award for excellence. That's the highest level. But we've also introduced these other 3 tiers that we'd like to talk a little bit more about to kind of explain how they might meet your agency where you are. And if you want to know more about what we're going to be talking about, please note the link at the bottom of this slide. This information is available on the Community Action Partnership website on the Pathways to Excellence page. So let's talk a little bit about the first 2 levels. The first level is the bronze level, and we call this commitment to excellence. And this is a critical level because this is where, as an agency, you really make that commitment to do the work. It's one thing to try to run off and do the work. It's another to stop and make a deliberate decision that we're going to do this, and it's going to be tough and it's going to take time. And that's what the bronze tier is about. So it involves getting board, not just board approval, but board engagement in taking this journey. It involves a very short agency profile where you get to learn, do members of your staff, particularly your senior leadership and board, when you talk about your agency, do you see it the same way? Just this short 5-page profile is an excellent starting point to see if there is alignment about who we are as an agency and what our environment is. So you really have to start to make sure you're on the same page. It also involves convening a team, because agency excellence is a team effort. It requires a lot more than just one person pointing the way, whether that's the CEO or the board chair or someone else. They need a team to make this happen. And then, of course, we talked about the standards of excellence. The final component of this level is really knowing those standards, and we do that by asking participants to complete an e-course that we have at Community Action Academy that immerses you in the standards and makes sure that you're familiar with all of their requirements. So that's the bronze level. The silver level, higher status, next step on the podium. We call this implementation of excellence, because this is the transition from making the commitment to taking action. And so what's involved in the silver level or silver tier is obviously you've done some of that earlier work. You've got your team together, you've got that commitment. But what's involved in silver is completing an online organizational assessment. It is not a thorough assessment of your organization, but it is a deeper dive than that agency profile that I mentioned a moment ago. So again, that's another useful tool to see what the alignment of your staff is, and where there may be some places where everyone agrees, like that's a focus area where we need to do some work. But this is an area where we all agree, we're doing pretty good. So that's an important part of implementing some of those plans that you have to move your agency forward. Another key part of the silver level or silver tier is investing in one of your staff to have them become what we call a pathways implementer, a certified pathways implementer. So a pathways implementer goes through a formal training process, much like a Roma implementer, and really learns the standards, but also learns some strategies about how to apply them, how to document the status of your agency, and then how to get feedback and then implement that feedback to help your agency improve. So this is a great opportunity for a staff person, particularly an emerging leader, to really invest in agency excellence. And they can become your point person for helping your whole team continue to move forward. Another part of this tier is doing an abbreviated, what we call self-study. And so you'll learn why we call it abbreviated, because it's not the full self-study. But they take, out of those 7 categories of the standards of excellence, they take maybe 2 or 3 of them, the Pathways Implementer, working with the agency excellence team, and they do a deep self-study of the agency in 2 or 3 of those categories. And then they get feedback from peer reviewers across the network, fellow CAA staff who are certified to review and assess excellence documentation. And they get feedback and suggestions about what some possible next steps might be. So silver is a great initial action step once you've made that commitment. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim to talk about the gold and platinum levels, because these are the ones that have kind of carried over from the past, but these really represent when excellence becomes a reality in your agency. So, Jim?
Thanks, Aaron. Yes, as Aaron said, this is the gold level, now called Pursuit of Excellence, is the old Pathways to Excellence component. And, gold was, the Pathways to Excellence was the full agency-wide self-study. And as I mentioned about the standards, getting a foundation on the standards and what the requirements are is the first component, but then learning how to assess where you are at this point in time compared to each of the 35 standards is the process here. And so the full, when we say full agency-wide self-study, you're talking 7 to 9 months to complete, and there's a full set of tools and training. The first item there says attend training on the self-study process. That process of completing an agency-wide self-study would be utilized, built on the foundation you will have set in place from the first 2 levels, the bronze and the silver. You would be using an agency-wide leadership team that would guide the utilization of all your staff to participate in assessing where you are now compared to each of the standards. Because the pathways, or in this case, pursuit of excellence component, is about assessing where you are. It's not about achieving the standards. It's about understanding the standard and evaluating and assessing where you are compared to that. And there are 35 components because each standard must be assessed compared to the activity you currently do. And you may already be achieving that standard, but as most agencies find, they are deficient in usually some component of implementing or formalizing something. And as a result of that self-study, you get a independent peer review by outside cadre of peer reviewers that have been trained on the peer review process. And then you get a full 30-page feedback report, which gives you the strengths and opportunities for improvement for each of the 35 standards. So in effect, it becomes a blueprint or a basis or foundation for moving toward excellence. And you are then free to move at your own pace. And when you feel like that you've actually achieved that level, then it's time to think about the platinum level. And this is the award level. So if you could think of the investment in time leading up to assessing where you are, getting the feedback report, putting an improvement team in place, making the improvements over time, and then deciding we're ready to go for the award. We think we are an agency of excellence. And so you redo the same self-study with the benefit of having done the improvements from your feedback report, and you get another assessment, but on top of that, you get an on-site visit from your peer review team to validate and verify that you are actually doing those things. And so when we talk about validating in the field best-in-class practices, that's where these things come from. We see it actually implemented, and that's where the standard gets updated. So based on the self-study and the site visit, then a recommendation for the award then goes to the full partnership board, and the recognition and honor then is at the partnership annual convention. So that's our platinum level, and hopefully that is the ultimate goal that we hope all of you would be moving toward. And this, represents, from moving from the org standards and into the tiered approach, and ultimately recognition, national recognition, kudos for being an agency of excellence that deserves recognition for what you've accomplished. Aaron?
All right, thank you, Jim. I want to take a moment before we get too much further and note Jim made reference to the Excellence Commissioners, the members of the agency, the Excellence Commission. There are, I believe, 7 community action leaders who participate in that commission and who have done incredible work on behalf of the network to get this program back up and going. And so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge their leadership that they have shown and given to the network, and just thank them for that. And we couldn't be where we are as a network without their leadership. We appreciate it. So let me take a moment, and I know we want to begin to wrap up so that we can take any questions or thoughts that folks have. But let me take a moment to talk about what type of investment would be involved in pursuing this journey to excellence. And we have a slide here with our pricing structure. I won't read through each item because you can do that. And you can also access this price list on the partnership website. So if maybe the screen that you're viewing, you can't kind of make it out clearly, you need a little more time, please go to the website. But here's what we want to emphasize about the cost of this program. Number one, we've tried to be cognizant of the fact that agencies are in very different places in terms of resources. And we have tried to develop a fee scale that recognizes that diversity. And particularly, we have so many agencies that are smaller in terms of budget, often large service area, but smaller budget. And we want to be sure that every agency across the network has an ability to access the Pathways to Excellence program. And so we've tried to take some note of that. Also, you'll note that the fee structure kind of increases as one goes through the tiers. That's also intentional. We believe that the bronze level enrollment fee, and this is a flat rate for all agencies of $750. Think about that. That's roughly equivalent to the price of one staff person attending a conference. But what you get from that is, I think, much more than just conference participation. And as you look at the other levels of engagement in the program, and you think about the cost, think about what the return on investment would be. We think and we hope that the return to your agency in terms of tapping the expertise in the network and making the commitment to participate and benefit from this program, we think and hope that would be well worth the financial and time investment that your agencies would make. So if you have any questions about pricing and things like that, we'd be happy to take those at the end of the presentation, or certainly offline if you want to talk to one of us individually. And now I'll pass it to Mary Beth to talk about some of our resources and wrap us up and go into some Q&A if folks have questions.
Great, thanks so much, Aaron. Before we get into resources, I just want to talk a little bit about the enrollment process and what you could expect from that. If you are like jazzed and ready to go, you can go and fill out our enrollment form now. We are collecting information on the front end from you to help us determine what pricing is needed, kind of given your budget, and we will issue you an invoice after we've looked at your information. But first, it starts with that enrollment form. Do note that there are a couple of pieces of information that you need to be able to complete that enrollment form. We're looking for your strategic plan. We're looking for your most recent 990. That helps us verify your funding level. I want to note that for the public CAAs on the call, that we understand you don't have a 990, but we need some way to verify the funding level in your agency. But we're also looking for your agency contact information and just basic information about your agency. And then, as I said, after you've submitted that form, you'll get a confirmation from us that lets you know that we've received it. And then we'll review for completeness, and then we will generate an invoice to whoever that contact is that you put on the enrollment form. I want to make a really important point here that enrollment is not considered complete until payment is received. So we can't actually enroll you in the program. We can't open up the e-course to you or anything like that until we've received payment. One other item that we need to cover, we've referred to the importance of peers in this process. And those peers need training. And so there are a number of certifications that we have within the Pathways to Excellence program. The Pathways Reviewer Training is one. We'll be launching our Pathways Reviewer Training again later in 2022. This is really a great professional development opportunity for you or your staff to learn not just about what excellence is, but how it's deployed across the country and understand how to assess excellence. So if you are interested in becoming a Pathways peer reviewer, please do stay tuned. We'll have more information coming on that in the very near future. Also, some of you on the call may be current Pathways reviewers, peer reviewers. We are going to be providing a refresher training in spring 2022, and that will come at no cost to you. And that will be on the new standards, and we'll walk you through the process because we know it's been a little while since we've looked at this together. So we'll be reaching out to current peer reviewers very soon to schedule a touch base and then discuss that upcoming training. The refresher training, again, is going to be offered at no cost this year because it's so important that we have these awesome peers ready to engage and support the project. Lastly, while the silver level includes certification of a Pathways implementer for your agency, we recognize that agencies may have a need for an implementer outside of that tier. As you heard, you don't have to go through the tiers, sequentially. You may decide you want to come in at gold. You may want to start in bronze, but you may want to enroll or get a Pathways implementer on staff. Or perhaps, you have some attrition, or you're trying to maybe build in some backup and cross training on your team. So we are going to offer implementer training as a standalone option as well. So please do mark your calendars. We are planning for a virtual implementer training during the pre-conference at MLTC. MLTC is virtual. This training will be virtual. But so if you are thinking about joining the silver cohorts or would like to get a Pathways implementer certified this year, mark your calendars for the first 2 days of MLTC. And those dates are escaping me off the top of my head. Maybe Erin has them, or they're on a slide later on, and we'll circle back to that. Do you have them off the top of your head, Erin?
I want to say February 2nd through 4th, but don't quote me. I will check that.
Yeah, we'll get to the slide. We'll get there. I want to call out a couple of the timelines and what you can expect. As we said, we are kicking off our enrollment now, and we are hoping to have our first bronze agencies ready to go in December, and our silver and gold cohorts will launch in January of 2022. In February, we will have our implementer training. We are planning the peer reviewer refresher training for March, and we plan to do a whole new peer reviewer training for a new class of peer reviewers in September as part of our annual convention at the pre-conference of the annual convention. So it's really important to say at this point that these are projections at this time. If we've learned anything from the last 2 years, it's that things change and they can change pretty rapidly. But we will keep everyone informed as time goes forward. So one other point, I know a number of you on the call are state associations or state offices. And while Pathways is specifically for community action agencies, that does not mean that you don't have a role to play in Pathways and in supporting excellence at the local level. So there are several things you can do in this space. If you have several agencies who are interested in Pathways in your state, you could help facilitate a cohort for additional peer support. Want to flag that if you do have multiple agencies interested, please contact us at the partnership because we will want to talk about how we can coordinate and support on that front. I want to offer up if you have funding available. I know everybody just laughed, like available funding that's not doing anything. But seriously, if you have available funding, you could offer to cover some of the fees associated with pursuing excellence, or you could reimburse the fees when a level is achieved. Also just make sure you're talking with agencies as they're on their journey, as they may need to be making some additional investments into their agency to achieve excellence. So, keep in contact about what to be paid from CSBG and if there might be additional resources to help with any of those investments. Another idea is that you can offer training and technical assistance related to excellence topics. Check out the standards of excellence, get to know them, see if there are particular areas that your agencies may have interest in training and technical assistance around. And the last point, you heard Jim say it earlier, please remember that Pathways is a voluntary program. While we really love to see every agency pursue excellence, it really is a commitment and it has to be the right time for an agency. So we were going to do a quick poll. Erin, do we want to launch the poll and maybe answer questions while we're launching the poll? How's that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, so we're curious for folks who are with us today, if after this, after you've learned a little bit more about excellence and about Pathways to Excellence, if you have an idea of a level that you might want to engage in. So we've put up that poll. You could also say, I'm not sure yet. We completely understand that as well. So Erin, in the chat, there's a question, how does this impact agencies that have already been in the process of going through Pathways?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is one that we don't at the moment have a general answer for. I think what we'll be doing is working with agencies on a case-by-case basis. We do know that there were some agencies that have previously engaged in the program, and sort of we're at different points in the process, and so we do want to respect the work that they've done. And I think we'll just work with those agencies individually to think about what would be the right next step going forward. But we would love anyone who has participated previously in either the Pathways or the award program. We would love to have you re-engage in any of the capacities that Mary Beth mentioned, as a participant in one of the tiers, as a peer reviewer, or in other ways.
There's also a question, can a CAA enter the bronze level at any time, or is it one time per year?
Yeah, and again, that's a detail that we're going to kind of discover as we go. 2022 is sort of a pilot year, so we're going to learn some things along the way. But I will say this: our initial intention is to try to recruit a group of bronze participants over the next couple of months, so that we can kind of learn with them about sort of how long that process takes and how they experience it. After that, we'll probably be making a decision about whether we will have some additional cohorts during the year or whether it'll be on a rolling basis. But I will say this, I'm fairly confident, don't quote me on this for sure, but I'm fairly confident that if you're not quite ready to take the leap and participate in the bronze level in the next month, I believe there will be at least one additional opportunity in 2022. That is our intention.
And keep in mind, Aaron, and those on the call, that since the standards are updated every 2 years, some of these decisions have to be based on if you've enrolled in the past and there's a new set of standards. The past approach has been if you started the formal self-study, you got to finish with the standards you started with. With these new levels, those have to be factored in as we go forward, because when the new set of standard comes out, and how long have you been involved in working with a standard set from the past? So those are kind of, as Aaron said, we've got to figure those things out as we go forward.
Here's another good question from Lori. Can you sign up to pursue whichever level you have, or level or goal you have? These are based on whichever you sign up for, or do you have to proceed through all tiers in each set of fees?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have designed the program so that you can participate at any level without having to go through the tiers in succession, because we know that agencies are in different places. But I do want to just, offer this caution. I saw that a couple of folks are interested in the platinum level, going right for the award. I think that's great. We'd love to have some award winners within the next year or two. But we do want everyone to be very cognizant of this. Each tier is sort of implicitly expects that you've done some work prior to that tier to get to where you're ready to do that. So for example, do you need to have an implementer on staff to do the full self-study or to go for the award of excellence? Because the implementer is part of the silver tier. No, you don't. But it helps. Now, another example is, do you need to have a board resolution to do, the gold tier? Well, gold is in bronze, but if you're going to do that self-study, which Jim said is quite a long and involved process, there does need to be board support and engagement. So some of the tiers do have expectations or requirements of some of the previous ones. But if you want to do those on your own, or if you already have them in place, then you do not have to pay, the fees to go through that part of the program. You can jump right in at the place that you're ready as an organization to jump in.
And I will say that the original concept, the gold level, the pathways, was really for an agency to jump in and get feedback about what they needed to work on in order to be successful at the award level. And because in going for the award, you're in effect assessing yourself and trying to achieve the award in the same year. And that's a heavy burden. And so the gold and the platinum are sort of set. One augments getting you ready to go for the full award. So they're not that you can't go for the full award right off the bat. It's just a heavy burden. But you do have 2 years to complete the award. And even if you go for it, then you would have time to get feedback and another year to get improvements done.
I just want to add one point here too. If you're not sure which level might be a good fit for you, Aaron and I would love to chat. We'd love to talk with your agency, understand your goals, and help you make that decision on what level might be the best fit for you. I don't see any additional questions just yet. We have a couple more slides just to talk about some of the resources and point you to where you can find the information we've discussed on the call today. So feel free to put items in the chat as we are wrapping up. And thank you for taking the poll. That was very helpful. So on our website, if you want to find more information about Pathways to Excellence, you go to Programs and Initiatives, and you select the Standards of Excellence webpage, and that will bring you to this beautiful page that has all of the materials that we've talked about today. It includes our updated Standards of Excellence. It includes a really nice video from UPO in Washington, DC, who is a recent award winner. If you want to kind of see an award winner up close. There is also a template board resolution. For those of you who are interested in bronze, you could go ahead and go download that right now and bring it to your board. Additional resources are there on this site. Want to flag the save the date. Here's the slide we were talking about for MLTC. It will be virtual February 2nd through 4th, 2022. As we said, the implementer training pre-conference will be held in conjunction with MLTC. And if you want to chat with any of us, here's our contact information. Always feel free to reach out. I see another question in the chat about how can we access the PowerPoint from this meeting. We are going to send out the PowerPoint and the recording very soon. So we'll send that to everyone who is on the call, as well as put it on our website, and we'll link to that in the e-news on Friday. So I want to pause and see if anyone, Jim, Aaron, any closing thoughts?
I just very quickly just want to thank all of the folks in the network who have lent their time, talent, and treasure to supporting their fellow community action agencies, our excellence commissioners, our peer reviewers, and all the folks that have participated in one way or another in previous versions of this program. All of that work has really built an incredible foundation for the rest of us to learn from and build on. So I want to appreciate that and thank everyone who has contributed to that. And we look forward to working with you to continue building even further. So we're really excited about this, and we hope that that you'll join us.
With that, I guess we will say thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to hear from you real soon. Take care.